You started?
Oluwatoyin. Yes, so
Yes.
Dr. Okafor has kindly do the introduction, so we are now diving into the
Okay.
discussion. Yes, no problem.
Okay. Have you
Thank you.
greeted the dignitaries?
Well, I greeted everyone, and I specifically extend my profound gratitude to the Clinical Pharmacists Association of Nigeria. I hope that is enough.
Okay, let us greet the elders of the was there an opening prayer?
No,
Yes, that was
sorry.
opening prayer.
Okay. The elders of the
Moderator, hold on.
profession.
Let us continue,
Hello?
please. Moderator,
Okay, ma.
hold on.
You can
Let him
continue.
continue, please.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
okay, okay, okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I greeted, but yes, I greet everyone. If there are elders of the profession, my sincere apologies. We are welcome, and it is my great pleasure having you on the platform. So let's start with some pure imagination before we dive in properly. Maybe it will flavor the discussion more proper. Imagine two-case scenario. One, you have a case study whereby you have a 5-year-old child that requires 5 milligram of an anti-cancer drug daily for 5 days, which is then followed by an additional 5 milligram from 0.5 to additional 5 milligram. You can see the dose different. The dose is kind of being augmented after 5 days to 5 milligram daily for another 5 days. Unfortunately, the drug is only commercially available as 50 milligram adult tablet. So imagine this scenario. One, the drug is unstable in liquid medium, which means you cannot do liquid extemporaneous compounding. And secondly, the drug is beta testing. So you need to think, this is a child, this is a beta testing drug, and the drug is unsuitable in the common situation where we do extemporaneous compounding, liquid compounding. And then the second scenario is I want you to imagine a situation whereby there is a treatable outbreak over or under the sea. Maybe it could be naval team or submarine in the sea. They are on a mission that will last for 6 to 12 months. That is treatable. Possibly there is even powder form of the drug in the ship. But then what will happen? This is what we call hard to reach areas, like a disaster situation, a moon or space mission when people go to the moon, when people are diving, for instance, a shipping situation. So these are realistic situations, but they are very hard to reach situations where sometimes medical supply can be issue. So these are the two scenarios that I want you to imagine first. Then maybe the discussion will be more interesting when we dive in. So when we say pharmaceutical 3D printing, what do we mean? Essentially, we are talking about an additive manufacturing where you create a 3D model in a computer. Usually we use computer aided design. You create the 3D model. It is now from the 3D model that you direct, okay, what kind of shape do I want? How many copies of is it tablet or capsule or oral film that you want to 3D print? How many do you want to print? What is the dimension? If it is a drug combination, how many drug combination do you want to print? All this, you design it using a computer-aided design, and then you 3D print it layer by layer from the digital design that you have enabled. And then when you talk about automated compounding, what does this simply mean? Simply means we are moving away from the conventional manual output, which usually involve crushing the tablet, adding the liquid, mixing the liquid, pouring in the container, asking the patient to pour a particular amount. All these are very laborious, and they require a lot of processes, which are very prone to errors sometimes. And you can agree with me that in most cases, when we talk about extemporaneous compound, we are talking about liquid compounding. There are a lot of issues about the stability of liquid compounding, for instance. So this is a semi-solid or solid dosage form in most cases. So when we say automated compounding, it simply means combination of digital input where you create the design. You obviously start with, for instance, digital prescription, interconnected. This prescription come to the pharmacy, whether in the hospital or community settings, which now detail the information about the patient, the dosage form that is being required. And then after pure manual step, maybe touching the screen, then you have the product. If we come if we can mute everyone, I think it will be nice so that we can finish in time.
It's okay, you. Thank you.
So it is from the simple pure digital or manual output that you generate now the product. The product, you can see you have the digital prescription, you have the formulation selection, dose, API, the number of copies. Then you 3D print the copies that you require, that the patient require. All you need to do is, like, sometimes we do what we call in-process quality check, where you check the weight uniformity, you check whether the active principle is there, and then you package. That is all you need to do. That is why it is automated compounding. You don't need the manual liquid preparation and so on. So when we talk about point of care, this simply means production of medicinal products such as tablets, oral films, capsule, or biologic that are near to the patient, where the patient is being treated. This is what point of care manufacturing. So I'm just giving some conceptual definition so that when I talk proper, you are in the same page of what I'm talking about. So in essence, we can see pharmaceutical 3D printing in just 3 few steps or at a glance. One is the Parma ink preparation. The Parma ink is the mixture of the drug and your excipients. That is what we usually call pharma ink. Excipients can be like plasticizer, flavoring agents, sweetening agents, and so on, depending on the technology that you want to use. And then the digital design. Now you use your computer-aided design to do 3D design the shape that you want, the copies that you want, the dimension that you want, that will define the dose. In most cases, when you talk about 3D printing, it is actually the dimension, the size that will define the dose of the active principle that you want to dispense. So that's why it is a very quick and easy to use manufacturing steps. Then the third state is you just 3D print and you pack it. So you can see how simple it can be when we are talking about point of care manufacturing. When I talk about point of care manufacturing, I'm specifically talking about hospital pharmacy practice. I'm talking about community pharmacy practice. I'm talking about clinical trial site, for instance, and so on. So essentially, all of this, what the aim is ultimately to provide quality, safety, and efficacy of compounded medication. So there are several merits that we can look at pharmaceutical 3D printed medication versus conventional mass manufacturing. The first, for instance, is the automation, automated compounding in pharmacy, for instance, either hospital, community pharmacy, clinical trial site, where you can personalize the individual dose of the medication for the patient. This personalization can be with respect to the dose. Each patient requires a particular dose. That is why we do compounding according to our professional ethics and professional practice. So, but in liquid compounding, hardly you can achieve that without some kind of like situation where you are not 100% sure. If you are preparing a liquid preparation, you are asking the patient or caregiver to take a particular medium to measure what the patient needs to take. But in this case, once you design the dimension, you tailor the dose, you print it, it is exactly that which the patient require that they will take at a time, and there is no need for any additional measurement and so on. So you can do the personalization based on the size that will define the dose. You can do the personalization based on the color that you want. The particular patient may require a particular color, especially this is very relevant in children, or the flavor. You can also personalize the flavor. You can decide, okay, let's check what color preference does the patient need. So you are now building a medication, but at the same time, you are engaging the patient to make decision of what they prefer and what is going to be more suitable in terms of like ensuring adherence and the compliance. And in most cases, these are solid or semi-solid dosage forms, which simply means instability issues associated with liquid extemporaneous compounding is going to be avoided in this case. And in most cases, you can produce complex drug delivery system whereby you can have multi-layer tablets, polyfills. Polyfills means you have multiple drug printed at the same time in a single fill, and all the patient need to do is to take one fill, and that will contain one, two, or three, or four active pharmaceutical ingredient in one. And this can be very relevant in management of, for instance, elderly patient, cardiovascular combination with maybe comorbidity situation like diabetes. And also you can create modifier release profile. This all depends on the type of the dosage form that you design. So you can 3D print different dosage form from conventional tablets, chewable tablet, oral films, capsules design, and you can also kind of design the different shape based on what the patient needs. Sometimes this can be very attractive, especially for children. Rapid prototyping, this is important, for instance, for pharmaceutical industry when they want to do like a pre-formulation studies to see which is going to be the faster way to kind of come up with a formulation that will deliver the active principle. And then, of course, the point of care, as I discussed, that you can take it to the clinical trial site, to the hospital and community pharmacy and so on. So what are the opportunities? There are multiple opportunities that you can explore with pharmaceutical 3D printing. For instance, mass manufacturing. The first FDA-approved mass manufactured 3D printed tablet was in 2015, which is a drug used to treat epilepsy. There was several advantages encountered with that. For instance, high drug loading and personalization, of course. But this is not enough, because when we talk about point of care manufacturing, we are still talking about personalizing the dose for individual patient. And that is where this on-demand personalization comes in. It is also another area of application, automated compounding, veterinary use. Apart from use in human, you can use it for veterinary use. There are several studies now that show the potential of this. And then in drug development, I will show you some typical example of I listed drug development work we did for some companies in US like Pfizer, where quickly you can know, okay, with this drug, we can do rapid prototyping and this is working, and then boom, you can move into like either you want mass manufacturing or you want to go into like clinical trial site to implement it. And another aspect is hard to reach areas, as I discussed at the beginning. You imagine, for instance, Navy on mission that are deep into the sea, or people that are shipping product from one country to another, from one continent to another. Sometimes there could be diseases, there could be outbreak. So with pharmaceutical 3D printing, all they need to do is, for instance, to install the cartridge that contain the drug, and then design the 3D printing, and the medicated dosage form is ready and available for use. Space mission, for instance, this is an area where actively I am happy to be like among the people that started to champion discussion around this, and it is now happening. NASA is actively working on this. For instance, emergency situation and disaster situation. Sometimes we have outbreaks in Africa or globally, and supply chain can be cut. So if you have 3D printing platform, which is a very portable system, you have the active principle and the experience, you can easily 3D print and you can take care of supply chain blockage or hurdles. So let's look at some of the typical 3D printing technology, basic principle. For instance, for this particular technology, we call it semi-solid extrusion 3D printing. And this is how it's used. It works. So basically, you have the Perma ink. This is what we call the Perma ink cartridge. It contains the drug and the active, the excipient inside in a semi-solid form. This is a whole 3D printer. You have the digital model. All you need to do is to instruct this based on the dimension that you create, that will now 3D print, as you have seen in the video. A typical example here is one of the project I did for Pfizer last year. We 3D print two different drugs, all as oral solid dosage form, crystalline solid dispersion. One is acetaminophen and the second one is celecoxib. What they want to see is, can we create a crystalline solid dispersion of the drug using 3D printing? In layman language, can we maintain the crystalline form of the drug in the formulation as 3D printed? In this way, they want to see if this is applicable, then you can create dose flexible formulation with this. And then if they want to do clinical trial in different countries, They don't need to manufacture the drug in one country and start shipping it across the continent. All they need to do is to have the 3D printer in each of their clinical trial sites, and then once the formulation is optimized, they can direct the clinical trial site in each country or each continent, and then just 3D print, and the medication is ready for clinical trial. So you can see this is for first in human use. This is the key goal in this, and it was successful, and the publication is there. It was published late last year. And the second system is what we call direct powder extrusion 3D printing. Here you have the powder with the active principle and the excipient. In most cases, you add something called plasticizer to soften the material when it is heated. Then you 3D print. So this is how it works. It will extrude it down based on the dimension that you create in the digital design. Now the tablet or whatever shape or dosage form that you decided, it will now 3D print, and it is ready just immediately after the printing for packaging and onward use. This is another project that I delivered when I was working with the company also last year 2015, 25, sorry, for Takeda Pharmaceuticals in the US. This one, the aim is to have a single dose drug. For confidentiality reason, I cannot mention the name of the drug here. And the second drug, objective is to create a fixed dose combination, 2 drugs in one, using direct powder extrusion 3D printing. Why? Because these drugs are poorly soluble. So it is intended that the 3D printing could potentially enhance the solubility and dissolution profile of this drug. This was also a very successful project. And this slide is just to showcase that apart from this like pharmaceutical company that are actively engaged in making sure that this is reality, there are several interests. For instance, NASA was in our facility in London 2024. Last year, July 2024, they came to see how can they kind of collaborate so that they can take this 3D printer on their mission, because some of their astronauts, sometimes they get sick, so they need to be treated, and they cannot take everything with them into the moon. So can 3D printing be a solution? And believe me, this is a mission now in action, because this is actively ongoing, and hopefully very soon you hear some patient being treated in the moon using pharmaceutical 3D printing. Another thing to like showcase that this is actually happening, is not a myth, it is reality. The Center for Disease Control, also another very interesting project I executed while I was with the company. We deliver this kind of filament. We generate a filament. This is another technology, for technical reason I don't need to mention it, but you have to generate a drug-loaded filament, and then you use it to 3D print. So the aim in this case for Center for Disease Control in the US is to see, are there cross-contamination? If there is, how can we curtail the cross-contamination if it is this filament are to be used for commercial use or commercial 3D printing of the dosage form? So yeah, what I intend to do here is to maybe like let you breathe air. For some of you that want to take coffee, you can take your coffee and stretch your legs. The next couple of slides will talk about the clinical case studies where this has been implemented, and then we will wrap it off. Maybe you can take 1 or 2 minutes to sip your tea. I'm gonna sip my own. I hope we are all together.
Yes, sir, we are together. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. I hope you are able to sip your own tea. I sipped mine. Tea or water. Depend. I know maybe in Nigeria it will be very hot now in some regions. So what are some clinical case studies where this 3D printed dosage form are being used to treat patients, for instance, in clinical settings? This is one of the example where children were treated, children with rare metabolic disorders were treated in Spain. This is a reality. Different amino acid combination were 3D printed. Compared to the conventional liquid compounding, there was massive improvement in terms of the efficacy of the treatment. And in terms of patient preference, the children prefer the chewable tablet. These are gummies. They were 3D printed and treat the patient with this 3D printed in a hospital pharmacy settings. There are several of these similar examples. For instance, I will talk about the capsule peeling, but this is happening across the world now. There are over 15 studies according to a recent literature Scofield review we have done to observe, okay, how is the clinical implementation of this pharmaceutical 3D printing globally? And we identify over 15 studies as of 2025. So this, as I mentioned, the key relevance here is preference, patient preference. The children prefer this chewable compared to the liquid preparations, and the fixed dose combination that we're able to print compared to the liquid compounding also in one. Because in most cases, when you are doing liquid compounding, hardly you combine 2 drugs in one because of incompatibility issues. This is another one. This one we execute the project last year, and we published the work also with the International Journal of Pharmaceutics. This is a 3D printed inspired formulation where, for instance, we deliver personalized doses of minoxidil in a capsule. So additional advantage of this 3D printing system is that they can contain capsule peeling system. So instead of manual peeling of the capsule, you can use automated system to ensure the precise doses of the active principle are being filled into the capsule. So this is what we did, the first study globally to implement pharmaceutical 3D printing in a community pharmacy setting. I was very happy to be part of this because it is real. You treat patients also showcase their preference. And some of the outcome of the study is that the preparation time were shorter for this 3D printed compared to the manual capsule peeling system that were used. There was another study, for instance, in Gustave Roussy Hospital in Paris, where they are also exploring this system to do capsule peeling for anti-cancer drug. So they can combine anti-cancer drug and anti-emetic drug in one capsule peeling system. So they can do, for instance, pellet dispensing into the capsule and then semi-solid extrusion dispensing into the system, and you have multiple combination in one system. So that can also enhance compliance and improve treatment outcome. So this is the global clinical implementation I was talking about that one of my MSc students did. We did the work last year as a scope review. We tried to look at, the aim was to look at over 15 years period from 2015 to 2025. What is the global implementation landscape of this pharmaceutical 3D printing? And what we observe is that there are up to 15 studies worldwide that showcase the clinical implementation of this pharmaceutical 3D printing in countries including China, United States of America, Germany. Mostly 70% of the study were done in Europe, centrally Germany, France, Spain, Netherlands, and Estonia. And there was one feasibility study in the US. Unfortunately, none of this clinical implementation came from Africa. For instance, Africa, I think there are other 3 WHO regions that none of the study came from. Africa is one of them, Southeast Asia, as well as, I think, Eastern Mediterranean. So most of the study settings that implemented this were hospital and community pharmacy settings. Even though there are current studies, especially I see coming up this year, that are kind of showcasing clinical trial site. And then we also look at the regulatory landscape. What is the regulatory landscape of this? What is the regulation across, for instance, UK, US? Are there regulation? Are they to be regulated as just conventional extemporaneously liquid preparation or powder preparation? Or are they to be treated differently? So in most cases, we identify the regulatory bodies across the globe are actually creating working document to guide the regulation of how these medicinal products are to be used. In particular, I will show you one slide that talk about the MHRA in the UK, the European Medicine Agency, and also some of the work that the United States FDA is doing. So this issue that we identify is what informed our decision, or yes, a decision we made in the following slide here. The pharmaceutical 3D printing landscape in Africa. So when I saw that gap in terms of research and implementation, I was asking myself, okay, what could 3D printing landscape look like in Africa? And luckily for me, I got this amazing team, Pharmacist Suleiman from Ahmadu Bello University Teaching Hospital, Dr. Mubarak Garba Bello from Kaduna State University, Faculty of Pharmaceutical Sciences, and Muhammad Bello Abakar, also a scientist. I collate this team, and then with some colleagues from University College London and Spain and the pharmaceutical company I work all, I say, okay, can we look at the pharmaceutical 3D printing landscape in Africa? Can we do a SCOVY review and identify what is happening? And luckily for us, well, I don't know whether I should call it lucky, but unfortunately, there are only 6 studies in the whole of continent of Africa, peer-reviewed studies, original peer-reviewed studies on pharmaceutical 3D printing in Africa or from Africa. And out of these 6 studies, only 2 countries are involved in this. That is South Africa and Egypt. So we identify a massive gap, even from the research and development perspective, talk less of clinical implementation. Obviously, there was no clinical implementation in any level in Africa. So this is additional information that I use. Okay, now I say, okay, maybe I need to do something about this. Obviously, I'm from Africa, so I have a particular interest in Africa. Research should be global, but sometimes you try to identify gaps and then you try to create solution by identifying the gap. This is what also informed my decision for this second slide for my MBA thesis now. What I'm investigating is I want to understand what could be the market potential plus regulatory and infrastructure realities if this 3D printing is to be implemented in Africa. And in case you haven't come across this study, you can kindly scan this barcode, and maybe after the presentation, you try to fill in the questionnaire. Because this is important. It's not for my thesis, but I think it's very important for the regulatory agency, medicine regulatory agency across Africa, and especially the African Medicine Agency, which is just born, I think, last year, 2025. If global regulatory agencies like MHRA in the UK, European Medicine Agency, and FDA are working toward regulating this, then what are we doing in Africa, for instance? So this is what informed some of my decision with this. All this is just identifying gap and then try to fill in the gap. And some of you might ask, okay, what about the quality control? If they are 3D printed at the point of care, how do we ensure their quality before they are being dispensed to the patient? So these are some of, to answer some of this curiosity. There is mostly inline mass uniformity checking. While you are printing, some of the system, they have weighing balance already attached to them. So they weigh the individual mass of the 3D printed. So you know what you are targeting. If it comply with what you are targeting according to plus minus deviation that is being prescribed in the pharmacopoeia you are using, then you can dispense it. If it deviates, you can just eliminate that particular 3D printer one that deviate. And there are also some quality control check in terms of the active principle uniformity that is there. For instance, near infrared and Raman spectroscopy are all being used now, in addition with some chemometrics to understand the presence of the active principle and the quantity as well. For the global regulatory landscape, as I mentioned, the UK Medicine and Healthcare Regulatory Authority is the first global body to issue the modular manufacturing and point of care regulation effective from last year, July 2025, which is using a system called hub and spoke. This is like the hub. The hub is like central quality system where everything happening in the spoke system. Spoke system can be hospital pharmacy, community pharmacy, clinical trial site. So these are where the actual dispensing is taking place. But before doing this, there is a system according to the UK regulation that will share information in real time. So they are being checked before they are being authorized, whether they comply or not, and whether they are to be dispensed or not. So this is the proposal, and this is what they aim to regulate the implementation of this in the point of care system. And locally also, the European Medicine Agency in March this year, they also issue a document called question and answer document on 3D printing at point of care. This also gives some guidelines on what quality should be checked before the 3D printed medicine is being dispensed to the patient, all obviously to ensure that the patient is receiving the appropriate medication and avoiding risk that can pose to the patient. FDA is not issuing an official document yet, but still there are a lot of papers that are kind of serving as guide, but not like fully, okay, this is the full regulatory document, but still they are working. There are a lot of documents that talk about like guiding what to be done, but it's not fully mature as these two, European Medicine Agency and the UK MHRA. So the future implementation, the future actually, there is a lot to see in terms of implementation, especially in the hard to reach areas, as I mentioned, like in the sea, in the moon, for instance, in disaster situation. I'm imagining disaster situation and some, for instance, resource limited settings like Nigeria to be some of the key targets to see the real implementation and the real impact of this technology. So this is a future I see, and this is a future that is happening. But in particular, I want to see this future. Is Africa really carried along with this? So that's why maybe you will see some of my, I have a lot of work going on how to make this realistic actually in Africa. And that's why the last question here, what is Africa doing? Obviously, futuristically, also regulatory maturity is going to happen. I'm sure FDA will issue their regulation, and there will be at some point maybe harmonization of the regulation as well. But then, what is Africa doing? Is African Medicine Agency versus national regulatory agencies, member states from member states doing something? That is a question we all need to ask ourselves. And that's the question, and that's why I think I strongly believe the Clinical Pharmacy Association of Nigeria have a role to play in this regard. You are working with compounding pharmacists. Some of you are compounding pharmacists. You are in the clinical practice. How can this be integrated into our healthcare system? Are there possibilities? Who are the stakeholders that need to be talked about? With this, my survey for my MBA, I'm reaching out to some national regulatory agencies across Africa. I am sending emails to PCN, NAFDAC to see, can their members please fill out the questionnaire? And how can we come up with something? That is where I'm saying the Clinical Pharmacy Association of Nigeria can have a significant role to this. It is a system that will solve a lot of issues, a lot of problems, dispensing error, medication error, instability challenges, and so on. Patient compliance, because if, for instance, you are doing liquid compounding, you ask the patient or the caregivers to come back every 2 weeks or every 1 week. Sometimes it's not realistic, so they may end up missing and so on. So in conclusion, the Clinical Pharmacy Association of Nigeria have a role to play. The question is how? Engaging the stakeholders, appropriate stakeholders, identifying them and engaging with them. I'm very happy and willing to collaborate. And also, pharmaceutical 3D printing technology definitely is going to continue to grow, and it will shape the future of healthcare and patient-centric drug delivery. Finally, I thank the leadership of the Clinical Pharmacists Association of Nigeria, Dr. Okafo, and of course, pharmacist Omotayo Oluwatoyin, and pharmacist Abakar Magaji Dawood also for coordination. I thank the elders that are here, and I thank everyone for attending, and I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Yes.
Dr. Khalid, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Apologies, it was network. Anybody with we enjoyed your presentation. Very educative and, the latest trend of in compounding. Please, is there any questions? Anybody that asks questions?
Yeah,
I
hello.
think-
Good evening.
Okay.
This is
Good evening,
I
ma'am.
just want to thank you, appreciate our presenter, appreciate also the leadership of CPAN for this innovative idea.
Thank you,
Will
Prof.
there be the slides will there be shared maybe later?
Yes, definitely, ma'am. Okay, you
God
can
bless
answer.
Thank you, Prof. Yeah, it's fine.
Yes, I want to ask a question.
I want to ask a question, please.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the presentation. So, I'm a 3D designer and animator. So I have a little knowledge about 3D design.
Okay.
So normally, after I use Blender and CAD for my modeling. So after that, we take it to the slicer.
Mm.
From there to the 3D printer. So
Yes.
how are you going? That's the normal process for modeling 3D printing.
Yeah.
But for drugs now, what are the process? So that's my
Well, yeah. Thank you for this question. The process is more or less the same. So for 3D printing, what you do is you have a software. Usually we use either Tinkercad, or depending on the hardware you are using. Some hardware they came with their own 3D modeling system. But so for some that doesn't, you can use Tinkercad to create the 3D model. You generate the file using STL. You generate STL file. You transfer the STL file into the 3D printing software you are using. In most cases, we use Repetia host, but also that can change because the system, depending on the 3D printer hardware you are using. So with that, you can now slice this slicer. You can use slicer to slice whatever dimension you create. With that, you can now define the shape, the size, the infill density, the flow. This is a bit technical, but I believe you understand what I mean. So after you slice it, and then now you can instruct the 3D printer. So it depends on the technology you are using in terms of the hardware and the software. I hope I answer your question.
Yes, thank you very much. But I want to learn more about the pharmaceutical aspects. So
Yeah,
I want
no
to be your
problem.
student.
No problem. You can email me privately and we can take it from there. All right.
Okay, thank you very much.
It's
So
okay.
Okay.
the
I
second
don't.
question, I'm very sorry. The second question is about the filament. You talk
Yeah.
about filament,
Yeah.
normally we use ordinary filament for
Hello.
3D. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, we
Hello.
can
I
hear
think
you.
someone else can talk. You get across to him.
Yeah. So get
Let someone
across.
else ask
We can
question.
talk. Yeah, that's fine.
How can I get across to you, sir? I don't have your email.
Abakar and the Clinical Pharmacy Association will share my email with you.
Okay, thank you very
Yes.
much, sir.
Yeah.
Questions? Any other question?
Dr.
My hand
Daraka?
has been up. Can I talk?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
So Dr. Daraka.
Good day.
Yes,
Good day,
sir.
moderator. Good day, presenter.
Yes, sir.
Mine is
Thank you,
just to
sir.
commend you and also align with what our own respected distinguished professor has said. You have actually done well, and we appreciate the insights you have shared. The only thing is that as much as possible, you will have to further break down some of the presentations, maybe at another fora or at another opportunity, so that some people that have interest to key in with our own level of limited technology and so on, to make it more realistic. But by and large, it was a wonderful, insightful presentation, and congratulations for successful delivery. Thank you.
Thank you so
Over.
much. Thank you, Dr. Doraka. Really appreciate that. Yes, I'm very happy to do that. I think it's one of the mission I have now put in my agenda in the next 5 years. I am going to make sure not only in Nigeria, across Africa, this is a mission. And inshallah, I will achieve this. I have started last few months. I was in AVU's area engaging some stakeholders. This is the mission. So I'm happy and open to discuss this further. I will digest it more in a breakdown, as you mentioned, at any available forum. Yes, so we will do this, and yeah, we need a concerted effort to make sure that we are, for instance, Africa is not left behind in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Ibrahim Sonny. Ibrahim Sonny, this is up.
I think, yeah, I think it's the same Ibrahim that
Hello,
asked you to-
Professor. How are you? Good
Okay,
evening.
questions.
Hello.
Good evening, ma.
Okay, good evening, sir. Good evening, moderator. Well done. Thank you for
Okay, ma.
telling all the current trend in pharmaceutical compounding. I think we are ready for this already. Professor
Okay,
Khalid, we spoke like 3 years ago when I finished my master's, and I think this is a good time for you to come in. The hospital practicing pharmacists, especially those people interested in compounding, we really need this. We need so many of the opportunity for updated learning. And I don't mind if any of the schools, pharmaceutical schools in Nigeria, can give you like a module to do so that we can use that to upgrade ourselves. So while we are wait for the technology, it's better we are prepared the way nurses are doing now.
Yeah,
Well
that's the
done,
plan.
Professor Khalid. Well
Yeah,
done,
that's the
Supan.
plan.
I'm grateful.
Thank you so much. That's the plan, actually. That's why I say I make it as a mission. I know it may take time, but regardless, I will continue to push. We will cross the barrier, we will break the barrier, we will make it happen, inshallah.
Amen.
Hello, good evening.
Yes.
Good evening.
Yeah, I am by name Ibrahim Sani, and I would like to first of all appreciate the presenter. I'm not surprised by the presentation. I'm your student, sir, from Bayero University, Kano. I'm just graduating this year. My question will be more, my question will be more on your presentation. The aspect of, although you have addressed how quality control issues are addressed in regard to this 3D printing technology. But in traditional practice, there is this GMP guideline in any production, and it's beyond quality assurance and control, safety and contamination issues, including the equipment, the personnel, and what have you. Things to take into consideration. So, talking about the decentralization of this production, like where supply chain is cut, you want to take it especially to regions like here in Africa, trying to maintain that GMP standard. Don't you think this 3D will be as demanding as initiating a new traditional form of production, or there is a way that it will greatly reduce the cost? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Ibrahim, for this, and congratulations for your graduation. I'm very happy to hear that.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the technology is coming up, and a lot of startup companies and pharmaceutical industry are picking interest. Yes, I agree. The costs of the printer, for instance, now might be an issue, and also that is why when you talk about the quality regulation, that's why I talk about the UK MHRA, and I talk about the European Medicine Agency, and I talk about FDA. The question is, there is no regulatory maturity yet. It is still coming up. But in terms of GMP standard, some of the 3D printer are GMP standard because there are issues that are being checked with respect to like, okay, what need to be checked before this can be used in the clinical setting. So some of them, for instance, the company I work in London, our 3D printer were GMP certified. And in terms of cross-contamination, all that we do are to avoid cross-contamination because mostly we use cartridge. The cartridge contains the drug and the excipient. So what you do, you put the cartridge, you design what you want to print, you 3D print, and you remove the cartridge. So there is no cross-contamination. They are mostly disposable syringes or cartridges. So there is no issue of cross-contamination. And then the point of care testing, as I mentioned, non-destructive. That weight uniformity check, that issue of like near infrared, they are just handheld. You check is there and you certify and you dispense. So all these are things that are yes happening. The price of the printer will significantly reduce. I'm very sure about that. Why? Because there are so many interests now. A lot of companies are now producing, coming into the production of the 3D printer. There are also discussion around possibility to even make the Parma ink commercial. Just like you buy, for instance, IB fluid. So you have the Parma ink that is going to be commercially available by pharmaceutical industry, obviously with regulation. That's why I say this regulatory landscape is very important and very critical. That's why I think it's important the African Medicine Agency and obviously the African state-wise medicine regulatory agency like NAFDAC and so on need to come into this. So the Parma Inc. are potentially, because already like last 2 weeks, I was in discussion with one company in France. What they are doing is they are even producing the commercial cartridges that contain the Parma ink. all you need to do is to have the 3D printer, put the cartridge, and then you can now decide what you want to 3D print, and then you dispense. But you can see how regulation comes in now. So there must be regulation around this. What will be regulated? The perma ink or the dosage form? If you check my MBA thesis questions, these are the questions I was curious to ask, especially from the African perspective. I hope I answer your question.
Are you okay? Dr. Khalid, I have a similar question. Being a new innovation and few countries or none in Africa, what is the financial implication? And like the person that spoke earlier, that maybe we are going to, maybe just prototype things that will make it comfortable. I'm looking at the financial implication that few countries in Africa, or even none, is it realistic? Can we be able to achieve it? That's just what I want to ask.
Yeah, thank you for this question. The same question I think few people asked me last 2 months in AVU's area when I was in a discussion with some of the Faculty of Pharmaceutical Science team there. Yes, I agree. The cost is an issue at the moment. For instance, one 3D printer could cost around, pharmaceutical grade one will cost around 70,000 euros. Some might cost around around 50, 60. So yes, I agree, cost is an issue, but I told them that as far as I'm concerned, this should not be an obstacle. Yes, it could be a barrier at some point, at some stage, but it should not be an obstacle that will say, oh, no, this is not problem. I believe with goodwill and good determination and appropriate advocacy and engagement, this is going to be, the price is going to crash, and we need to take it into appropriate use in African region.
Okay, thank you. That's true. At least we are going to start.
Yes.
And we'll start from somewhere. Any other question?
Please, we have some questions in the chat box.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some question in the chat box.
Dr. Daranka, AM.
Daranka already spoke. Dr.
Yes.
Abakar Wada is a presenter for. Oh, thank you, Dr. Abakar.
Who else you can speak?
Thanks. Okay. Yeah, I am reading the chats now.
Moshood, okay. You can go ahead.
Azia Benjamin. Okay. My question is okay. Yeah, go ahead, Moshood.
Okay, thank you, sir. My name is Moshood. I'm 500 level for pharmacy at Bio University, Kano. Thank you for the presentation, sir. So my own question is related to what I've been asked before, but I just want you to buttress more about the challenges that can be that we can be facing to implement this innovation in Africa. Apart from cost, are there other challenges that you have perceived that can be that can face to be implementing this kind of innovation in Africa?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you, Moshe. Really, very important question. And I would like to refer you to our scope review. This particular scope review, we answer all these your questions there, though I will answer some of them. This scope review answer most of the questions. The challenges key is lack of funding, because most of the studies that we observe, for instance, that clinically implement this pharmaceutical printing around the globe are funded by government or Ministry of Health and so on. So funding is an issue in Africa. I don't know. Yeah, in some countries, for instance, this South Africa and Egyptian studies that we have identified, even though not clinically implemented, but they are funded by the government in most cases. So funding is one of the key challenge, and infrastructure. That's why part of the questionnaire I have in my MBA thesis is, are we having the right infrastructure to implement this? Infrastructure, I means like the manpower, the skill manpower. I know this can be a bridge. For instance, it's just about giving training for those that wish to implement it, but it's also an issue if you don't have the manpower to use it, okay? The skills, manpower to use it. And then there are issues of also infrastructure like electricity. If you are to implement this, do we have constant electricity? Because obviously the 3D printer, they need electricity supply to design and then to 3D print. So these are some of the key challenges. And sometimes Yeah, the regulatory is not there at all. Regulation is not there in Africa. Regulatory perspective is not there. Even in the US, for instance, it's not there before, but at least there are some issues that are being, some documents that are being issued to guide the working, what is happening, and so on. But these are some of the key issue apart from the cost that can hinge or hinder the implementation across African continent. Okay, but if you want to read more about this in detail, please, I refer you to this publication. Okay.
Thank you so much. Then from the question box, what is the sustainability profile of 3D printing in low-income countries? The
Yeah.
sustainability.
Yeah. So this
Okay.
is exactly the answer is part of the question that was just asked now. The sustainability is how the regulatory agencies come in and play their role, and how academic need to play their role also. Because we are talking about a continent that has over 54 countries, and only 2 countries are being researched on this particular technology. Then there is question, right? There is question about, okay, is there a gap in terms of even the research and development in this, talk less of even the clinical implementation? So there is going to be need for to make it sustainable, there is going to be a concerted effort from the academic perspective, research and development, then the clinical implementation side, clinical pharmacists, clinicians, advocacy across the medical doctors, the pharmacists, regulatory agencies. So it is going to be a concerted effort. Everyone needs to be on the desk, and then discussion should be around, okay, how to implement, how to fund it, how to make the research going further, and then can we make our own even available? Can we manufacture our own 3D printers in Africa? And can we implement them at the clinical point of care, and so on? So these are the things that we need to address before we talk about the sustainability.
Yeah, the technical skills,
Yeah,
and other
exactly.
skills
Yeah.
clinical pharmacists can get to optimize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even if the clinical
I
pharmacy,
think we'll start somewhere.
even if they are willing to
Start
use
somewhere.
it, then training is important. Training is important. Yeah. So I think everyone
Yes, training.
have a role to play.
Okay.
Ahmad Jibril.
Okay. Ahmad Jibril. There's another. Ahmad Jibril.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's another question.
Yes.
thank you very much for this privilege to just chip in my own little point. Dr. Khalid, it's really nice seeing you and hearing from you. This indeed is an inspiring strike that you're trying to explore and educate us on.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate
Thank you.
it, and I wish you greater heights in life as you further more with your research.
Thank you.
Mine is just more of a request. If you don't mind sharing these slides so that some of us can take time to digest the content of what you educated us on, so that we can be able to put it into practical use or share the knowledge.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ahmad Jibril. My leader. Ahmad Jibril is my boss, is my classmate from Ahmad Bello University. And yeah, our president. Thank you. Definitely, we will share the slide.
You look good. Nice sense.
Thank you. It's nice hearing from you.
Another
there is
question.
one.
Should there be okay?
I see one Uba Ahmad also raising the hand.
Uba?
Yes, walaikum salam, Uba. Go on.
It's really nice to hear from you. It's been a while since I've actually been in contact with you. My question is quite, it's an observation really. Taking into consideration the landscape of Nigerian politics and our regulation, introducing this kind of idea will push some of our leaders into bringing something that we are not really ready for in order to secure certain publicity. In a
Okay.
situation where these devices are being brought to personnel that are not really ready to use it or don't have the knowledge to implement this process, is there a way? Do you have like a backup plan in case like someone calls you now and then said, Dr. Khalid, please, we have an emergency. We have this 3D and we want you to organize something to train our personnel in order to see if we can actually start using it. Not really dispense the information, but to start something.
Yeah.
Do you have any plan?
Yes. That's something I have been doing, and I say I will continue to do that. I organized 2 lectures, one in Shika, Ahmadu Bello University Teaching Hospital, the second in ABU Ahmadu Bello University's area last year and this year, and I am having this one. This is something I am willing and ready to do. And not only that, I'm very passionate, very passionate. This is something I'm 100% passionate about. Yes, so I'm ready. So yeah, all you need to do is reach out. But sometimes it depends on the level. If it is going to be like something that may sound like a consultancy, universities in the UK, they look at that as like something that you need to make it like a proper arrangement, make proper arrangement. But if it is something like free of charge, like webinars like this, or delivering public lecture like the one I deliver in Shika, ABU, there's no issue. But if it is a professional organization that kind of training may mean something. The UK university in the UK here, they look at it like a consultancy service. So you need to, yes, you can deliver it, but you need to document. And sometimes they say, okay, there should be a costing model for that. They try to protect you, the lecturer or the researcher, because you don't give out your intellect just free of charge. So yeah, it depends. You can reach out if you want. We can have a further discussion on that.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
there's another
thank you for that. Thank you. Someone else can
There's
go ahead.
another question. Okay. Should there be, if any, mistake arising from use of 3D printing, such as safety issues, who will be responsible from ethical and legal point of view? The
Yes.
safety issues.
Yeah, very important question. That is why I talk about the importance of regulatory bodies and having those regulation and guidelines in place. Okay, what will be regulated? Will there be regulation with respect to the perma ink? Is it a 3D printer product that will be regulated? Is it the 3D printer itself that should be regulated? So all these are very important, are very key questions. When you look at the European Medicine Agency question and answer document, these are some of the key issues that they raise. There should be a specific regulation with respect to the 3D printer itself, how it works, what should be checked to be sure that it is consistent and reliable. And then the 3D printed product itself, that is why I talk about the issue of weight uniformity, inline weight uniformity check, inline a check to make sure that the active principle is there and in the right quantity. And then the finished product. In most cases, we don't just go and 3D print and send to patient. From my experience in the company, we do our in-house checks first. We develop the formulation. We do stability study, at least a minimum of 1 month to 3 months, to be sure that the technology, the excipient, the drug, and everything is intact. There are no degradation product after this time period, and then before you take it to the clinical implementation site. So these are all quality checks to make sure that what you are giving to the patient, you are ensuring the quality and safety, and at the same time, the efficacy of the medication. So all this issue of who will be held responsible and so on, it's not really about who will be held responsible. It's about what does the regulation says, who and what to check and what not to check, what to check before you even dispense. Okay, so that's why I clearly state about the inline non-destructive quality control tests that are very essential when you're talking about the clinical implementation at the point of care. If you do extemporaneous liquid compounding and something happen, who is held responsible, for instance? I hope I'm making sense.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's about, are there regulation available around it so that you know, okay, if anything happen, how to be traced and how to address it. But even before that, because they say quality is being built in the system, not after. You have to build the quality. So in essence, what we are talking about is building the quality along the process. That's what most of these regulations that come in are talking about. It's not about after the wrong happen, it's to prevent the wrong from happening.
Thank you. For hard to reach areas with poor basic amenities, such as electricity, like you mentioned, how feasible is having 3D printing technology in such areas?
Yeah, it's definitely an issue, and it's one of the things. As an African person, I am thinking nowadays, I am thinking like, okay, so this issue of electricity, how can it be addressed? Because you cannot say you will address issue of electricity in Africa just at a blink, like for everyone to have constant electricity.
Someone
So
mentioned
will there be something that
government.
could be done with respect to the 3D printer itself? Maybe some
The
engineering
government.
to come up with something. Well, the government, I don't know, is something addressing electricity is going to be like a 1 day or 2 day or 1 year issue. So I think it's a challenge in African perspective, and that's why I am putting that challenge question in one of the question in my MBA thesis. I want to see, is there something that can be done? Like, can we come up with a 3D printer that will be like a computer with adapter? I don't know if I'm making sense, but it's one of the ideas that just coming off in my head, like the 3D printer, because they are portable. So can we design it so that it can have like a rechargeable system that it can last maybe for some days or weeks, something like that. So when you charge it, you don't need to worry about like electricity. You can use it for
That's the solution already.
you can use it for some period of time. So these are some of the things that. Sorry. So these are some of the things. These are some of the things that I am thinking.
We should digest the.
You're breaking.
Okay.
Yeah, so now we can hear you.
We should digest the innovative submissions and allow real learning and unlearning processes rather than all the skepticism in the question.
I quite agree.
The technology is reality behind the practice.
This is exactly my answer to the colleagues in ABU's area. I say I am an optimistic person. I don't accept pessimism. So whether there is challenge or not, it is going to happen. And inshallah, I will make it happen. If nobody believes in it, I believe in it. I believe it can be done. So we are going to implement it in Africa, inshallah.
Question 5. Owing to the fact that there could be hundreds of different API for management of different conditions in a hospital setting, does it mean each API should have a cartridge? If yes, how feasible is it to insert different multiple cartridges in the 3D printer?
Yes, very nice question. Very, very nice question. Yes, so some of the 3D printer, they have like multiple print head, what we call print head. So it's like a system where you can put 1, 2, 3 different cartridge, so they can have different active pharmaceutical ingredient. And in some cases, you can have the perma ink depending on your physicochemical characterization before you do the formulation or the pre-formulation stages you have taken. So in some cases, you will have the pharma ink containing multiple drug inside, 2 in most cases. As long as they are stable, so you can 3D print them. For instance, I have one of my MSc student that is working currently. We actually tried to load 2 drugs. Even during my PhD, I loaded 2 drugs in oral dispersible films. So it depends on the stability of the drug in the case. So if the drugs are stable, you do some HPLC test and you do not see any degradation products or impurities, so you are good to go. But in certain cases, the perma ink need to be individualized. Then you can now kind of 3D print one on top of another. So there is a system in the 3D printing system where you can 3D print one system with one perma ink, and then you instruct the other one to go and lay another layer on top of another. So you can have like multiple in one single pill.
Thank you very much. Mazak FM Enterprises. You raised the hand. Mazak FM Enterprises. You raised the hand. Okay. Any other question or comments? Question or comments?
Sorry, madam. So about how to get your email, sir?
Oh, my email. Okay, let me type it in the chat box.
Okay.
Email is there.
I'm coming, sir.
If you have any additional questions, you can reach out.
Okay,
GMK at Gmail. Have you seen it?
Yes,
have you seen it?
I've seen it. I've screenshot
Okay.
it. I not thought. So my question is
Any
about
other question or comment?
Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, you have question, go on. I think we are almost done.
Hello?
My question,
Yes.
my question is about the filaments. How are you going to prepare the drug as a filament?
How are you going
Please
to?
go and read more now. Read on these things now.
Let him. What is it? Tell me about the filament. Go on. What do you
Yes,
want to
is
know?
that he said that the filament will be as our API. Right?
Yeah.
A few weeks.
How are you going to prepare the filament, the API, the filament?
Yes.
Because it looks like that's
Okay, Mohammed, I think I get your question. Very nice question, very important. So the filament, you can have a filament depending on the system you are using. We call the filament sometimes pitch stock or perma ink, but in most cases for the fused version model in 3D printing, that's where we call it filament, the perma ink that contain the drug. But in case of semi-solid extrusion 3D printing, it's just the perma ink because it's like a semi-solid system that contain the drug and the excipient. But in a fused version modeling, because you need to generate a filament, the filament is that roll. Let me show you. This is a filament in this case. This is a filament. So this is used in fused version modeling 3D printing. You generate the filament that contain the drug loaded either impregnated on the surface or ingested using hot melt extrusion within the surface. So there are two ways. So you can either impregnate it on surface by soaking it into the drug system or drug solution, or you can do hot melt extrusion. You mix the powder of the drug and the excipient, you add plasticizer, you now extrude it at a particular temperature, you now generate the drug-loaded filament. I hope I answered your question. And now that filament is what you are now going to load onto the 3D printer. Based on your digital design, now it will 3D print the tablet or whatever shape or dosage form that you want. I hope I answered the question.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes.
I wish I would see the process in real life.
Yeah, maybe one day.
Thank you so much, everyone. Question or comments?
I
If
think
there is
we
none.
exhaust most of them,
Hello?
all of them.
Can I ask a question, please?
Apologies. Okay, another question. Okay.
Mustafa Mohammed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khalid, for this insightful presentation. Even though I joined late,
It's all right.
I was able to enjoy the later part of the presentation. And I'm not sure whether my question has been addressed during the course of your presentation.
No problem.
So I'm just coming from the pharmaceutical education perspective.
Yeah.
Do you think the School of Pharmacy, especially those in Africa, are doing enough to prepare our students for this type of emerging technology? I'm saying this because, our previous understanding in the pharmaceutical technology lab, I remember we do struggle with even the basic machines like tabulating machines. And I understand, so some School of Pharmacies used to even share
like those kind of machines. Like some universities visit other universities just to get their students exposed to those kind of equipment. So how do you think we can begin integrating this aspect in our pharmacy curricula? Is there any effort you are making in doing some situational analysis to see how we can be able to actually first learn and then later see how their practice can be improved? So thank you so much. This is just
Thank you, Dr. Mustafa. Dr. Mustafa is another classmate. It's nice to hear you, and thank you for joining. Very important question. Even in the advanced countries, for instance, in the UK or in the US, it's not like every pharmacy school, especially undergraduate program, that actually start to implement this into the curriculum. I'm very happy to report to you or to inform you, rather, when I joined Kingston University, London, last year, right? Was it last year? Yeah, last year, January. I was the first to create a curriculum that embeds pharmaceutical 3D printing in the master's program and the undergraduate program. And I can see the joy the students derive from it because it's new. There is one class that I was invited with by one of the professors about forensic science program. The students were so amazed, so enthused about the concept, about the technology. So yeah, even the university I joined recently in Newcastle, I don't think they have anything in the curriculum about pharmaceutical printing, but in Kingston University, I developed this. I have lecture notes, prepare lectures and design questions around pharmaceutical printing. So yes, I believe, as I mentioned, it is evolving, but definitely we need to carry our new generation or coming of pharmacists into this. There should be something around curriculum development to design to teach the young generation pharmacists about this. I quite agree. I don't know if similar thing is happening in our context in Nigeria, but it is a very, very important question. Very, very important, really. And one of the things that I realized to make it more interesting in class discussion with postgraduate and undergraduate students is when you showcase some of these practical scenarios with Pfizer, with clinical hospital setting and so on. So I agree. There should be something to engage our education system, the PCN, the pharmacy schools, to start to think something around some of this innovation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, elders, fellows of PSN, fellows of West Africa Postgraduate College, our lecturers, our professors, head of institutions, our HOD, Chairman CPAN, Past Chairman, ESCO, CPAN, ESCOs. We appreciate everyone. Dr. Khalid, we appreciate you.
Thank you.
We are highly honored. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending so much, and we hope to do more than this and go into action. Can someone give us a closing prayer if we are done?
Yeah, we are done. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Let us pray.
Amen.
Precious Father, we bow before you. We worship you. We thank you, Lord, for your son, Dr. Khalid, you're using for this innovative work. Lord, we thank you, God, for all that you're doing, even in our pharmaceutical space and formulation. We thank you for all your children that have joined, that learn one or two things to the glory of your name and to the benefit of mankind. Father, we bless you. We appreciate you. We give you all the praise and glory back. For in Jesus' mighty name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night rest.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you,
Dr.
everyone.
Khalid, good night.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
Thank you,
night
everyone.
rest.
Good night.
Good night rest.